Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I know I'm a little late on this, but you may have already seen it. I had it there to do a video on before, and it just kind of got lost in the shuffle, but I think it's very important, and I'd like to draw your attention to it. It came out on February 28th, which is not all that long ago, but this is a letter to our new Attorney General, William Barr, and it's by Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows. Now, Jim Jordan, if you look up here in the corner, Jim Jordan from Ohio is the ranking minority member of the Committee on Oversight and Reform. And of course, the current head of that is Elijah Cummings, the Democrat. But also there are subcommittees, and Mark Meadows is the head of one of the subcommittees. So he also signed this. Anyway, this is a letter to Attorney General Barr, and it's sending him a recommendation for criminal charges on Michael Cohen. So, this is what it says. Dear Mr. Attorney General, we write to refer significant evidence that Michael D. Cohen committed perjury and knowingly made false statements during his testimony before an Oversight and Reform Committee, and he has in parentheses committee because that's what it'll be referred to as it goes on, hearing titled Hearing with Michael Cohen, former attorney for President Donald Trump, on February 27, 2019. While testifying under oath, Mr. Cohen made what appear to be numerous willfully and intentionally false statements of material fact contradicted by the record established by the Justice Department in the United States v. Cohen, and there's the number for it and everything. Mr. Cohen's testimony before the committee at times was in direct contradiction to assertions contained in pleadings authored by the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, SDNY. There are other instances in which Mr. Cohen's statements to the committee were immediately contradicted by witnesses with firsthand knowledge of the subject matter. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 1621, a witness commits perjury if the witness willfully asserts any material matter which he does not believe to be true after having taken an oath to testify truly. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001, a witness commits a crime if the witness knowingly and willfully makes any material, false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or representation with respect to any investigation under review conducted pursuant to the authority of any committee of the Congress. Congress cannot perform its oversight function if witnesses who appear before its committees do not provide truthful testimony. Perjury and false statements before Congress are crimes that undermine the integrity of the constitutional duty to conduct oversight and inquiries. The points below support an investigation into whether Mr. Cohen committed perjury or made false statements at the committee's hearing. Now he starts listing them. Several times during his testimony, Mr. Cohen denied committing various fraudulent acts that he has pleaded guilty to in federal court. Specifically, Mr. Cohen said, "I never defrauded any bank." These denials are intentionally false. Mr. Cohen pleaded guilty to 5 counts of income tax evasion, 1 count of making false statements to a banking institution, 1 count of causing an unlawful corporate contribution, 1 count of excessive campaign contribution, and 1 count of making false statements to Congress. In Mr. Cohen's plea agreement with the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, prosecutors specifically referred to Mr. Cohen's crimes of making false statements to financial institutions as bank fraud. This point, Mr. Cohen's culpability for bank fraud, materially affects the committee's assessment of his credibility. Here's another one. Mr. Cohen repeatedly testified that he did not seek employment in the White House following President Trump's election. This is demonstrably, materially, and intentionally false. This testimony is in direct conflict with court filings made by the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which state, during and after the campaign, Cohen privately told friends and colleagues, including in seized text messages, that he expected to be given a prominent role and title in the new administration. When that did not materialize, Cohen found a way to monetize his relationship with and access to the president. So they got the text messages. When confronted at the hearing with the Southern District of New York statement, Mr. Cohen testified that the above statement made by the United States Attorney in Southern District of New York was not accurate. He testified, "You wanted to work in the White House." This is what Jordan asked him. And he said, "No, sir." And then, "You said clearly to Mr. Cloud and Mr. Jordan that the Southern District of New York lawyers were being untruthful in characterizing your desire to work in the administration. Do you say again that the lawyers of the Southern District of New York are being untruthful?" Mr. Roy was asking this one. "In making this characterization, yes or no?" "I'm saying that's not accurate." Shortly after Mr. Cohen's public statements at 11:13 a.m., I mean, Jim Jordan did a great job on this. Former New York City Police Detective Bo Dietl tweeted, "Getting sick watching these hearings. I know Michael Cohen personally for many years, and he told me several times that he was very angry and upset that he didn't get a post in the White House and that he would do what he has to do now to protect his family." At 3:44 p.m., Dr. Darrell Scott, pastor, New Spirit Revival Center, and a Trump campaign faith-based outreach coordinator tweeted, "Michael Cohen asked, no, begged me repeatedly to ask the POTUS to give him a job in the administration. He's still lying under oath." Mr. Cohen's testimony is material to the committee's assessment of Mr. Cohen's motive to monetize his former association with President Trump. It is essential that the Department of Justice investigate these remarkable contradictions between Mr. Cohen, the Southern District of New York prosecutors, and the public accounts of witnesses with first-hand information. In addition, based on the SDNY's reference to having seized text messages proving Mr. Cohen's desire for a position in the Trump administration, it appears that the SDNY may already be in possession of evidence bearing on Mr. Cohen's culpability. Mr. Cohen testified he did not direct the commission of the Twitter account at Women for Cohen. Specifically, Mr. Cohen testified, "I didn't actually set that up, and it was done by a young lady that worked for the IT firm Red Finch." Mr. Cohen's statement in this respect may also be false. The owner of Red Finch, John Gauger, reportedly told the Wall Street Journal that Red Finch established the at Women for Cohen account at Mr. Cohen's direction. According to the Journal, Mr. Cohen asked Mr. Gauger to create the at Women for Cohen account, still active in 2019, to elevate his profile. Mr. Cohen's testimony here is material to the committee's assessment of Mr. Cohen's character and credibility. Mr. Cohen attested in his signed Truth in Testimony form, submitted as Attachment A to this letter, and you'll see that down below, that he did not have any reportable contracts with foreign government entities. We believe this to be false. Mr. Cohen testified during the hearing that he had entered into contractual agreements during 2017 with at least 2 foreign entities owned in part by foreign governments, BTA Bank of Kazakhstan and Korea Aerospace Industries of South Korea. Mr. Cohen's testimony here is material to the committee's assessment of Mr. Cohen's character and credibility. During the hearing, Representative Meadows referred Mr. Cohen to the Justice Department for investigation into whether any of Mr. Cohen's lobbying or consulting activities were done in violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. I'm telling you, this guy dug himself in deeper by testifying. He lost out, and really, the Democrats are the ones that played him. So, anyway, let me go on. At a minimum, Mr. Cohen committed fraud against the companies he agreed to represent by accepting their payment and not performing his contractual obligations. We request the department investigate Mr. Cohen's potentially false statement on his Truth in Testimony form, the fraud carried out against the companies he agreed to represent, and his potential violation of FARA. Mr. Cohen's verbal testimony contradicted various aspects of his written statement, submitted in advance of his appearance and appended as Attachment B to this letter. And that is the majority. There's 30 pages in this altogether. This is really the second to last page. I mean, I'm almost done with this. But the rest of it has a big section of his opening statement because it went on forever. In contrast to Matt Whitaker's opening statement when he was there to testify, and they complained that he took too long. But they sure didn't do that for Michael Cohen, did they? No, the Democrats were just fine with it being long there. So these contradictions between Mr. Cohen's verbal testimony and his written statement materially affect the committee's assessment of Mr. Cohen's credibility. For instance, Mr. Cohen verbally testified that he was a good lawyer who understood the need to present his client with sound legal advice. Mr. Cohen contradicted his verbal testimony in his written statement by testifying that he made a payment to Stephanie Clifford without bothering to consider whether that was improper, much less whether it was the right thing to do. Mr. Cohen also contradicted his written statement by verbally testifying that the president directed him and Trump Organization Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg to go back to his office and figure out how to make the $130,000 payment to Ms. Clifford. In his written statement, however, Mr. Cohen testified that Mr. Trump directed me to use my own personal funds from a HELOC to avoid any money being traced back to him that could negatively impact his campaign. So see, he's got all these different stories that he was talking about. I mean, if you listened, that's what he was doing and contradicting himself. And so Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows took note of it, and they compiled this. Mr. Cohen continued to assert that he committed his crimes out of blind loyalty to President Trump. In Mr. Cohen's closing remarks, he testified, "My loyalty to Mr. Trump has cost me everything. My family's happiness, friendships, my law license, my company, my livelihood, my honor, my reputation, and soon my freedom." I don't think he had much honor to begin with. I'm sorry. This, too, is a false statement. The SDNY prosecutors and Judge Pauley specifically found that Mr. Cohen's conduct was not the result of blind loyalty, but of Mr. Cohen's personal greed and ambition. Mr. Cohen's attribution of the motivation for his crimes materially affects the committee's assessment of his character and credibility. In sum, Mr. Cohen's testimony before the Committee on Oversight and Reform on February 27, 2019, was a spectacular and brazen attempt to knowing and willfully testify falsely and fictitiously to numerous material facts. His testimony included intentionally false statements designed to make himself look better on a national stage. Mr. Cohen's prior conviction for lying to Congress merits a heightened suspicion that he has yet again testified falsely before Congress. We therefore request that the department investigate whether any of Mr. Cohen's testimony warrants another charge for the violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 or 1621. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. Sincerely, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows. And yeah, Mark Meadows is the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Government Operations. And then they sent a copy to all of these people, because this really is a big deal. They bring this guy before Congress and he lied yet again. And I like the way they put it down. They specifically had good examples, and the two different attachments that make up the rest of this are his truth and testimony form and then the written testimony. And that was his opening statement. So I'm not going to show you that, but I will show you this little attachment here. And this is something they have to sign, truth and testimony disclosure form. And this is the rules of the House of Representatives. Witnesses are asked to disclose the following information. And so this was the hearing that he was going to be speaking on. Hearing with Michael Cohen, former attorney to President Donald Trump. And there's his name, non-governmental, and he's representing himself. This is what they're trying to get him on here. If you are a non-governmental witness, please list any contracts or payments originating with a foreign government and related to the hearing subject matter that you or the organization you represent in this hearing received in the current year and previous 2 calendar years. Include the amount and country of origin. And see, he said not applicable. So that's what, and he signed it down here. So that's what they're trying to say, that he lied there too, and that he signed something because it says, knowingly providing material false information to this committee, subcommittee, or knowingly concealing material information from this committee or subcommittee is a crime. this form will be made part of the hearing record. So, yeah, I mean, that was it. And like I said, the rest of it is just that was just the rules. And attachment B is his statement. That was his opening statement, so it's long. Several pages. This is page 11 and it goes to page 30, so it's kind of long and everything. I will not read that to you. Down below I'll have the link for this and also this article for you, because this is an article by the Daily Caller that talks about it, and it has a link there to the letter in case you want to see it again. But anyway, and Cohen's testimony and everything. So it's a good article that involves this. And, I'll tell you what, Meadows and Jordan are not going to let this go. They're going to do their best, but they are ranking members. So that means they're not in charge anymore. And it does make things a lot more difficult. But in some ways, it's exposing just who the Democrats really are. So I think maybe this is necessary in the process. I don't know exactly how this is going to come out. I don't know if Barr is going to do anything about it. I hope he does. But, it's pretty obvious to most people that Michael Cohen is not a credible witness. However, the Democrats were relying on him. And I think one of the reasons that they were trying to get him in closed-door sessions had nothing to do with him having classified information. There's no reason for him to be in a classified situation like that, which is what they do. That's why they do the closed-door sessions. But they're using it to prolong this. You see, their whole tactic is they need to somehow generate popular opinion against Trump, that he is guilty of something. And if they can do Cohen's testimony behind closed doors, then they can play on the imagination of the American people. You see, they can speculate and nobody can correct them because you're not hearing what Michael Cohen said. You don't have any way to tell whether what they're saying is accurate or not. That's why they put him behind closed doors, because they were hoping so much that his testimony to everyone was going to reveal that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians, and they had to have him say something bad about Trump. But most of what he said, he actually exonerated Trump in a lot of ways. They asked if Trump had told him to lie to Congress, and he said no. Trump had told him to cooperate. And that was something they really were not expecting. So he did not support their position. I mean, he really didn't. And, especially about like the video, there's supposed to be a video out there of Trump hitting Melania. Okay. That was the video that they were referring to. And it is supposed to have taken place, I think, in an elevator or something. And somehow there's this magical little video out there. Well, the truth is that video doesn't exist, because this is what Michael Cohen did for Trump. If something like that existed, Michael Cohen would have found it. That was his job. So he didn't find it. It did not exist. And if you heard what he said when he was testifying, he couldn't even imagine Donald Trump ever treating his wife that way. So that right there cleared Trump of that fallacy that's been out there. It's just incredible how many little things he said that really did clear Trump. And of course, the left's not going to listen to that, but that was the situation. So Michael Cohen is going to be back in Congress this week sometime. I don't remember the exact day. I think maybe the 6th. That sticks in my mind. But he's going to be back in there, and it's going to be behind closed doors. So then when their little Democrats come out, they can say whatever they want, and nobody can verify it one way or the other. So it's going to be interesting. They're still hoping that they can garner a bad press for Trump. And by the way, I was listening tonight to Hannity on the radio. I heard him have a quote from Jerry Nadler, who is currently the head of the House Judicial Committee. And he said that in order to impeach a president, you had to get enough American people to believe that he's guilty. Now, that's not exactly what the quote was. I wish I had the exact quote, because it was like, what? Wait. That's not how you impeach. You impeach because you have evidence of a crime or criminal activity, or evidence of the president doing things that are against our country. That's why you impeach. You don't impeach because a bunch of people don't like the president. That's no reason. And that is not how you get an impeachment going. It just is like, that's what he said. They're relying on indoctrinating people against Trump. And that's why, they have the media to help them, but they are relying on that. That's how they plan on getting the impeachment through. If they can cause enough suspicion in people's minds, then they'll say, oh yeah, he does need to be impeached. And that's what they're trying to do with this Michael Cohen thing. They're stretching it out with Michael Cohen behind closed doors so nobody can verify what they're saying is true or not. And they're trying to make the suspicion that Trump is guilty. That's what they're doing. And you see, people have that kind of mind. And if they've been told so many times that Orange Man bad, then they will believe it whenever they say something negative about Trump. Most Americans' minds will go to something bad about Trump. Why? Because they've been watching the mainstream media. And the mainstream media says Trump is bad. Orange Man bad, So that's what is going on, I think. And it'll be interesting to find out what happens. Now, there are going to be some major things coming up in the near future, I think. So keep your eye on the news. Things are happening, folks, and they're happening kind of fast. And when they do, it's going to be huge. I think all of us are going to be amazed at it, even those of us who have kind of been prepared. So some big things are in the wings. I can't wait until they happen, because it's about time that we see the rule of law restored in our country. So there you go. That's what I've got. And I want to thank you for stopping by. And I will see you all later.